This is Euclid Book 7, proposition number 23, and I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. Okay. It says, if two numbers be prime to one another, they're not necessarily prime numbers, but they are prime to one another. Okay. The number which measures the one of them will be prime to the remaining number. All right. Let's go with this illustration right here. And if you have to, go ahead and pause the video. Okay. Now then, let A and B be two numbers prime to one another, and let any number C measure A. Now, I will grant you that the numbers 24 and 14 are not prime to one another. Okay? We're just going to go on the assumption that they're not prime to one another at this point, and then I will show you later on what will happen if they do become prime to one another. Okay? So, and we're going to say that line C is 8. Okay? Well, 8 does measure 24. I say that C and B are also prime to one another. So in other words, you're going to be able to say that 8 and 14 are prime to one another. For if C and B are not prime to one another, some number will measure C and B. Well, the number 2 will measure both 8 and 14. Okay? Let a number measure them and let it be D. So now we're going to say that D is 2. Since D measures C, which it does, and C measures A, which it does, therefore D also measures A. Well, 2 will measure 24 just like 8 will. But it also measures B. Well, 2 will also measure 14. Therefore, D measures A and B, which are prime to one another, which is impossible, by Euclid Book 7, definition number 12. Therefore, no number will measure the numbers C and B. Therefore, C and B are prime to one another. Now, you say, well, how do we set this up? Well, in order to make this the way it has it in proposition 23, what we're going to do is we're going to change the number 14 to 11. Like this. Well, you say, well, C will not measure B. That's correct. It won't. And there is no number, D, that will measure both 8 and 11. Won't happen. So, if we go through the proof again, okay, let A and B be two numbers prime to one another. Well, 24 and 11 are definitely prime to one another. And let any number C measure A. Well, C is 8, and 8 will still measure 24. Then you're saying that C and B are prime to one another, which 8, of course, is prime to 11. Because if they weren't, then you would find a number D, which would both measure 8 and 11, which you can't. And therefore, that's how the proof actually works. Alright? So by switching the 14 to an 11, then everything that was said in Euclid Book 7, proposition number 23, is true. There you have it. There you go. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.